they're super smart, okay, and they're super dedicated, but they're not always right.
Russ, how did you find carnivore?
Well, thank you for asking, Dave, and thank you for having me on your program. Um, I found Carnivore almost 2 years ago um, through a family member who was who told me he was doing Carnivore, and um, I was very skeptical. I had the traditional medical information, and having been through a heart attack myself and lots of doctoring advice over the years. Um, I was always a meat eater. I grew up in Oklahoma, and we ate a lot of things back there, and a lot of red dirt. And if I needed salt, I'd have a chip off the salt block and go on and put it in my pocket for the rest of the day. But so so I was concerned about this family member, and so I started looking online, and I discovered that it wasn't just a diet. It seemed like a lot of people were doing it. And I love meat, and I had to weight to lose. I didn't have a lot of other complaints, thank goodness, at that point in my life. But uh, I was 78 at that point, and uh, having had knees replaced quite a while ago, and gotten over a broken arm a couple of years prior to that, and so I really didn't have any complaint. I might still probably walked a little funny, but I was feeling relatively good. I just didn't know how sick I really was with my weight condition. I'm a diabetic also. So, in looking at carnivore, and I started listening to all of the testimonials, and I think for me, the testimonials, I mean, certainly the medical advice and the bona fides that the physicians brought to the table there on the use of carnivore, is something that relates. Personal testimony is always the strongest, I think, uh, for us and as humans. And I said, okay, I like meat. I like my bread and potatoes and the rest of it too, but maybe I'll just see what I can do without it. So I started on it, and it was a matter of 2 or 3 days, and I noticed some changes right away. And mainly it was I woke up in the morning feeling rested. I wasn't tired. It wasn't hard to get out of bed. And I felt good. In other words, I felt a certain amount of enthusiasm just for getting up. And I'm not saying that it was an immediate healing of my body in 2 or 3 days, but I could tell something was different. And after a week, I'd lost, I think, 7 or 8 pounds in the first week. Now, I'd had my gallbladder out a couple of years prior, and so I was taking supplements for that, for eating, especially digesting protein was the toughest part. And so I was careful to do that, and I didn't really have any problems doing it. Eating, going into the second week, at the end of the second week, I lost 12 pounds. And at that point, I started off about 260. And I had, at my highest weight, I was 280, but that was several years ago, and I'd slowly trimmed it down some, but still 260. And, the old terms of used to be obese. And now they have three different categories for obese, but it used to be you were the top highest category I was in, that was called morbidly obese, according to the scales, the guidelines. So, so after 2 weeks, Dave, I noticed that not only had lost the weight, I still had a little bathroom issues. My bowels were adjusting to the all the protein and everything, but I just felt good. I felt great, and I've been on, like many people, on several weight loss programs down through the years, lost it, gained it back, diet this, diet that, salad, especially after my heart attack. I ate a lot of salad for a while. But um, so after 2 weeks, I told my wife, Margaret, who also went on it with me, she likes meat and she was happy. She's one of these people that can just kind of eat the same thing over and over without a lot of difficulty. And I'm the one who wants a little bit more variety in eating, in this case, she went right along with me, and she was doing good. And I told her, I said, "There's something really different going on here, and I think I think it stands up or measures up pretty much to my background." Sort of discovery was back in the 70s, and I was involved in a company designing and developing one of the first TENS units on the market. And so I told her, I said, I think this is more like a micropulsar TENS, which was the product name that we eventually manufactured for 31 years. Um, I said, this is something like that. This is unique, and there's a lot of people doing it, and it doesn't seem to be a fad. And so she was right with me, and we were watching videos after videos, and all the people that, uh, if you're familiar with the carnivore community and people that are watching it, I will relate names maybe later on of all the doctors and individual influencers that we watched 2 years ago, and almost 2 years ago. We were going through them, and so she agreed, and she wasn't having. I would say she didn't have weight to lose. She wasn't having the kind of result that I was feeling, and but she was definitely supporting me in it, and it simplified our meal planning time. I mean, that's you just can't beat throwing a couple burgers, a couple steaks on, and then you just wash up, and you sit down and you eat and you're done. And I know that there's a wide variety of styles and personalities, and people come from all different shades and colors and everything that are doing carnivore. And my story is not a long list of health issues. I have a couple of major ones, uh, but fortunately, I was mainly concerned about the weight loss, and I was concerned about my family members having a heart attack, and that's why I started. And then the more I looked at it, the more I read about it, listened to testimonies of the doctors, the open heart surgeon, that I'm sure you know who that is, who's who's made quite a statement for an open heart surgeon to make. I'll keep you off my operating table if you listen to me. I like that, and just so happens that early in my career, I was in at the head of the table in an operating room on over 100 open heart surgeries back in the late 60s and early 70s. And I saw what went on there, never thinking that one day that would be me. I had no thought of it at the time, but uh, it, 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 it's really interesting to hear that open heart surgeon with his comments and his willingness to actually state, I don't want you see you in my operating room. I don't want you anywhere near me. And I like that. Um, so marching on through the that was late September of 22 that I started the program, and marching on through October. By the end of October, I'd lost 20 pounds, and I'd kind of 30 days into it, had settled with the bathroom issues. My body was adjusting, and just feeling good, and getting different pair of pants, and that's all of that goes along the side benefits of eating this way. Um, and I think, like a lot of people, the biggest thing I've noticed about that 30 days program, I'll go back to one program I did back in the I think in mid '80s called Cambridge International. I don't know if you would have heard of that back in your day, but back then it was a supplement, a powdered protein supplement type of weight loss. You drink it, and it was a low calorie one, only 110 calories per serving, which was the FDA eventually made them up the calorie count, but it was typically supposed to be 330 calories a day, and I did that for 30 days and fudged a little here and there, but I lost 20 or 25 pounds, and I was 41 at the time, and playing a lot of basketball, and even though I would think I weighed 225 when I started, I carried the weight pretty well, and at least that's what they told me on the court when they ran into me. Um, but it felt so much better to lose that weight. But I was still young enough that I didn't have any other complications, and strictly a weight loss program. And then after that, enthusiasm went away. I put the weight back on, and there we go down. Same old story. Uh, but the reason, and anybody who's done this, which means almost everybody probably that's watching this program, is that you look at that as a diet and as a short-term thing, and you're going to reward yourself at the end with all the things you were eating from before. Somehow, the brain, I'm not sure which hand goes up here. The brain doesn't uh, uh, click in on that for some reason, and uh, hence the failure for almost all diet programs eventually. That doesn't fit your lifestyle. And we're, as humans, we're so slow to change our lifestyle. We like what we like, right? We like the ice cream. We like the popcorn with lots of butter. And we like the snacks. Whenever you're sitting down at TV, you've got to have something to chew on. And don't forget healthy dose of Coca-Cola or whatever your beverage is. And standard American diet, I was a champion of that. Coming on down through the months, and at the end of 90 days, I'd gotten to a weight loss of about 35 pounds. And that was, for me, that was pretty remarkable. And I was feeling good. And eventually, my wife and I were able to get out, play golf a couple times a week. And I had broken my shoulder a couple of years prior to that, falling down and had gone through physical therapy. And I would just getting through that, and I was afraid that if I started playing golf again, it would would show up or something, but it didn't. And who knows if carnivore was a reason for that? I don't know, but so far the shoulder's been good. We've been playing golf now since probably January this year, a couple times a week when we can, maybe even three if we get a chance to get it in. Just little 9-hole course. Uh, And it's, it's kind of the main exercise I do. I'm not out walking and running and lifting weights or anything, but not that maybe I wouldn't benefit if I did, but uh, I just feel good. My body's telling me I'm doing the right things. I'm not done. I want to go on further, but it's going to take a little more discipline than I've had since that I been carnivore, but I wouldn't say I'm a strict carnivore. My wife would be the first to tell you that uh, if I feel like having a piece of toast, feel like having a can of green beans, maybe I don't know, the occasional burger with bread with a bun. But it's the occasion, and it's not the rule. And I've gone through times where I've hit okay toast in the morning and I'm not eating, so I justify the toast, even though I know that as a diabetic I'm not supposed to do that. And but my blood count's gone down, and so I've been. I guess you would call me more like a ketovore. Um, but
Right.
go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, can I interrupt? So Could you talk a little bit about the diabetes and like what's happened with the diabetes since you've been carnivore?
Yeah. Um, Going back to the year 2000, the very early 2000. I had my first stent, and it was just a painful episode in the morning. Got up. I wasn't even going to go to the hospital. My daughter was at home at the time, and she said, "Dad, you're going in." So I would go in, and they put one stent in, and uh, that went on. A few more years passed. I think it was 2005. We'd moved to California from Oregon, and I had another stent, and same thing, sort of advice, eat the standard medical advice for the condition you're in, and I was pretty good about that. And then 2008, almost at the end, in the latter part of December, I had a heart attack, and I was at home, felt the pains coming on. I had nitro in the drawer. I'd never used it, never had any severe pain, but it just had the nitro. It was probably out of date anyway. So I threw a couple of those down and said, I'll go in the morning. And this is about 6 o'clock in the evening. Along about 11 o'clock, I told my wife, I said, as I was stuffing more nitro in my mouth, I think you should call 911. And I hadn't said much to her at that point what was going on, and she, why? You know? And so, fortunately, they got there quickly, uh, and the trip to the hospital was about 15 or 20 minutes. And the guys were giving me all the morphine I could take, and it wasn't. I was in really bad pain, and it was, I could breathe, but uh, it was bad, and so. Got there quickly, fortunately, got in right away into the cath lab, and met my cardiologist, and he gave me two more stents. And I didn't know about my diabetic condition. At that point, I wasn't seeing and getting regular blood tests. I hadn't been to the doctor a lot. And the process of having the open heart, eventually needing, I had the two stents and then eventually an open heart surgery a few days later for pretty serious triple bypass operation. And coming out of that, I was okay. Recovery was reasonable. But at that point, I was starting to see the doc and looking at the numbers and everything. Uh, no one told me that I was pre-diabetic at that point, so I'm assuming I wasn't. Uh, and the diabetes showed up probably a couple years later. The pre-diabetic showed up a couple years later, and I think maybe A1C would have been, maybe 1.2 or something like that. I mean, yeah, uh, not 1.2. The blood sugar content on my meter be 1 is what I'm trying to say. And doc says, well, if it gets to be 125 or more, you're diabetic, and I'm going to put you on some medicine. And it didn't take too long, maybe another year for that to happen. And so I think it was around 2015 that I started on metformin, and eventually they added another one. Um, the highest A1C was a couple, 3 years later, probably it was 9.0, A1C of 9.0. And it didn't stay there all that long, but the doc was pretty nervous at that point, and they added another uh, diabetic medicine at that point. So I had two medicines, metformin and one other one. Um, and so then over the intervening years, I worked on it some and got it down to mid sevens, but still that wasn't enough for me to come off any medicine. And I frankly, I don't know why. Stupid is the only thing that comes to my mind. Reason why a guy would just continue eating uh, things that are sweet, and not a lot, but I like certain things, and I had them periodically, and whether I was diabetic or not. Um, when I started carnivore, I I'd had most recent test. I think my A1C was 7.5 or 7.8, and I haven't looked exactly, but uh, my most recent was 6.1, and I'm still taking metformin, but a reduced dose of it, and I've dropped the other medicine. So it came down, and I monitored my blood sugar a lot since I started carnivore, and so a lot more than I ever did before. Uh, I'm smarter now. I've educated myself, but finally got the message.
So when you, after having a heart attack and then finding out you had diabetes, were you a little bit concerned about going on to carnivore? Like, I imagine, the dietary advice after having a heart attack is not eat more meat. So weren't you a little bit scared or felt like you were taking a risk?
Well, um, yes and no. I spent my career working in the medical field as a biomedical engineer and electrical engineer, and so I was around for 7 years. I was in a teaching hospital in the Northwest and did a lot of research support and things like that. So I was around a lot of doctors, and um, I found out, before getting around hospitals, doctors were way up there, at they're way up there. And I found out that they're just people. Well, it's like anybody else. They're good ones and there's bad ones. And there's conscientious ones and there's full of themselves ones. They're great people, but I mean, they're super smart, okay? And they're super dedicated, but they're not always right. And I knew that at the time I was thinking about carnivore. So that was the reason I was open to some more information from other people, especially other doctors, and then look at the results of all these people you're interviewing. And it's not a one-off thing. There's something here, and so I don't really have anything to lose. I know that what we've been told, if you eat a lot of fat, you're going to bring up clog the arteries, and you're going to be back on somebody's operating table. That was the advice. So that's why I was cautious going in. But after first couple of weeks, and I don't know, maybe 75 videos later, I was pretty convinced that it was safe enough for me.
What what improvements has your wife seen by doing carnivore?
Um, I think she would mainly state that there's a kind of a little bit of a mood stabilization thing going on there. Certainly, eating. She's a calorie counter person. I put in all the calories, and I'm sort of the opposite of that. And just I, I don't know, maybe I don't have the patience for it, but she does, and so she pretty much maintained a 1,200 calorie day. With doing carnivore, and prior to that, she was doing 1,200 calorie days with other means. And we used to eat a lot of broccoli, and uh, now we both know that there's some harmful oxalate stuff in broccoli, along with not that it's terrible for you, but just that whole Dr. Paul Saladino's videos, and he discusses a lot of that and what the plant's doing. So I think my wife is if she were here, she would probably say, I haven't noticed the big, great result, and her weight has stayed the same. Uh, she's, I think she's had more energy at times than, there's although I haven't really asked her about this, there's a thing I call the carnivore calm. Other people call it different things, but there's a certain, it's got to be a brain interaction that's going on with the nutrients in meat that triggers a calmer spirit. I think an ability to handle stress more easily. Um, Maybe give you a positive outlook on things. Maybe not dwelling so much in the past, looking forward to greater things in the future. Something like that. It affects everybody differently, of course.
So at this stage for you, is it carnivore for life, do you feel?
Yes, it is. I discovered, not discovered, but really trying to take advice from other carnivores about fasting. I'm pretty much an OMAD eater. Uh, if I'm really hungry in the morning for some reason, I'll have bacon and eggs. Um, but the like the 5 o'clock diet, I used to call it, seemed to work best and gets me through the evening without a desire for snacking, especially if you have the fatty ribeyes or something like that. We eat a lot of hamburger as well, and that's equally satisfying to me. But the ribeyes seem to go a little farther in that suppression of the appetite in the next morning. Um, I I wouldn't want to be a bad influence on anyone talking about deviation from a strict carnivore. I believe that the strict carnivore for a lot of people, and probably for me, is the absolute best. Uh, Somehow each person has to deal with mentally with the things that are grabbing you, and you can easily talk yourself into saying, "My body needs a piece of toast. My body needs a potato now and then, and maybe some green beans." But it's not a way of life, and it's not going to be for me either. Uh, I want to get back to my high school weight, which means probably another 25 pounds.
If you were giving a friend advice about how to get started with carnivore, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to look deep into your reasons why you want to do it. And somebody said once, if your why is big enough, you'll find the how. The how will be easier. You'll find the how along the way if your why is big enough, and that makes a lot of common sense. And so, for the person who has a lot of disabilities, a lot of problems to go through, I would recommend before doing too much to go look up the videos, the ample hundreds of videos that are out there, and many of them are categorized by people such as yourself and Dr. Berry and Dr. Chafee. And there's wonderful resources, and just kind of hone in on what it is you want to do, which is your main thing. If for a lot of people it's weight, but weight also has a lot of baggage that goes with it, and then there's the diabetic portion, which so I would say you have to do what your own personality dictates. I've heard this, so I'm going to kind of repeat it, but I agree with it. Uh, I'm a technical person and also an entrepreneur. I could say that. I was, not anymore. And and so I'm more likely to just jump in and go for it. And that's my personality. Other people are a little slower to respond, and we need more input and more affirmation from the appropriate authority, and that's fine too. And it's going to be harder to find the appropriate authority outside of the carnivore community of MDs and so forth, out in the real world, but they're there, and I would say do what, yeah, to this new person. I would say go ahead and start it, and if you can possibly do it all at once. Um, if you've been a big sugarholic and a big carb eater, and you take it easy, you know, slowly come down. I think that's advice a lot of people would give. Uh, but sometimes there's that psychological component that if you don't jump in all the way and don't discipline yourself, you're not going to finish it. You're not going to start it because you'll find some reason. Somebody can talk you out of it pretty easily. Um, and you don't want that. It's just too good to, it's too good of a cure for a lot of things to treat it lightly.
Nice. Um, what would you say to people that say carnivore is too restrictive?
Well, let's see. I would say waking up from an open heart surgery with a catheter down your throat and a machine doing your breathing for you, that's pretty restrictive. And I don't know anything more restrictive than that. Certainly, it's not carnivore.
Yeah, it puts it in stark contrast, right?
Yes, that was a wake up call, and um, I guess my frustration. Uh, I don't know if I've heard this articulated all that much, but the idea of the carnivore movie and things that you're doing and all of the other presenters that are trying to tell the story, if you look across the spectrum of age groups, it's the old folks for the most part that are coming on your shows, and the reason they're coming there is because they've had a how, and their how, I mean, their why was big enough because they had a lot of problems and they weren't just looking for a quick, let's go to the prom, weight loss program. They're looking for some change. And so they had some seriousness about them. When you're 40, unless you've got a major health issue going on, you can carry 20, 30 pounds, and you can still get out and run and do a lot of things. And the social life also is a component here. And David, I think that your social life may change when you go to carnivore, and if you get around your friends and they want to know what you're doing, because you don't really look at food the same way anymore. Food is not a social contract. Food is fuel, and you love to have social contract, but our society is geared around. We sit down at the meal, we eat together, we bring out the cake that grandma baked or your wife or whatever, and they're kind of offended if you don't have a big chunk and maybe seconds. And so that aspect, I don't know if everybody at age 40 or so is willing to deal with that, but I wish, uh, the movie the series Back to the Future, uh, Doc Brown, here's what I'm envisioning, what I'd like to see. I'm Doc Brown. Okay. I come roaring back in my DeLorean and I come up to my kids, in their 40s, and I discover myself there. And I go up to me and I say, why didn't you take better care of me? Look at what you've done. Fix this now. And then I'm out of here. See? So I think if there's any message that gets out from carnivore, yeah, all this older people, we need it. That's a great message. But the real impact is on the people that are in their early 40s and even younger if they've got problems. But at least the 40 set, you still have time. You don't have to go have somebody messing around with the insides of your heart, uh, to make this happen. And you'll look a lot better in your 40s if you've lost that 20, 30 pounds, whatever it is. And by the time you get to be 60, 70, 80, nobody cares what you look like anyway. And an 80-year-old losing 35 pounds, who cares? Nobody wants to look at that. I know, but uh, I like it. My wife likes it, so good enough for me.
Nice. Um, so Russ, do you have a way of reaching out to you if people want to get in contact? Do you have any social media or contact details?
Um, I live a pretty private life. I'm not on social media, and I kind of like it that way. But you have my email address. If anyone wanted to contact me, that'd be fine. I just I'm so busy with helping with my grandson and other grandchildren and playing a little golf, and I just I like the message. I'm behind it all the way, and but I social media, kind of leaving that alone.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll link to your email below. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, Russ. I really appreciate your
All
time.
right, Dave, and I want to say to you, thank you for what you're doing. I know you're putting in the midnight oil, uh, doing what you're doing, and rapidly getting the message out, and that's what's most important. Thank you for it.